Published 0426 Est, the 17th of November 2017. Updated 0630 Est, the 17th of November 2017. Paul Tomlinson, who was 29, committed suicide after becoming overwhelmed by his punishing gambling addiction. A Morrisons supermarket manager hanged himself after he became overwhelmed by a punishing addiction to gambling. Philip Tomlinson, 29, would squander up to £1,000 a time playing betting machines and became so hooked on his habit he sold his expensive set of golf clubs to help fund it. His girlfriend also left him when he frittered away cash at the bookies, which had been earmarked for a trip for them to see the Northern Lights together. Last July 11th, amid mounting debts, Mr. Tomlinson penned a note saying, "I am sorry for gambling. It was my biggest regret," before taking his own life at a beauty spot. He was found hanged from a tree in secluded woodland by a dog walker in Monton, near Eccles, Greater Manchester, less than an hour after his worried mother issued a missing persons appeal. 2 handwritten suicide notes addressed to Mr. Tomlinson's family were found in his rucksack. Last July 11th, amid mounting debts, Mr. Tomlinson penned a note saying, "I am sorry for gambling. It was my biggest regret," before taking his own life at a beauty spot. Philip's death was a tragedy, and nobody can begin to comprehend the grief of a mother whose son has died before their time. The coroner ruled this is a case where the message should go out that gambling is as punishing and fatal as other addictions and can bring nothing but misery and tragically death. Philip was known to be a long-term gambling addict, and the preparation, the location that was selected, and together with the information in those letters leave me in no doubt he wanted to end his life. Philip's death was a tragedy, and nobody can begin to comprehend the grief of a mother whose son has died before their time. Earlier, the inquest heard Mr. Tomlinson, who worked as a pricing manager for the supermarket giant, had started playing slot machines before moving on to forms of gambling using his iPhone, a tablet. Tributes at the scene of Mr. Tomlinson's death. 2 months prior to his death, he had taken a paracetamol overdose as a cry for help. An inquest heard that in the weeks leading up to Mr. Tomlinson's death he appeared to be getting back to his normal self. Coroner Timothy Brennan pictured warned that gambling is as punishing and fatal as other addictions. At an inquest in Bolton, Coroner Timothy Brennan recorded a verdict of suicide and said the reason he did so was all contributory to his chronic addiction to gambling. This is a case where the message should go out that gambling is as punishing and fatal as other addictions and can bring nothing but misery and tragically death. Philip was known to be a long-term gambling addict, and the preparation, the location that was selected, and together with the information in those letters leave me in no doubt he wanted to end his life. Philip's death was a tragedy, and nobody can begin to comprehend the grief of a mother whose son has died before their time. 2 months prior to his death, he had taken a paracetamol overdose as a cry for help and was seen by mental health professionals who recommended he attend gambling AA sessions in a bid to tackle his addiction. His girlfriend Rachel Hurst attempted to break his habit, but 3 months before his death they split up when she discovered he was still gambling. Mr. Tomlinson's mother, Kendall Rogers, 53, told the hearing Philip worked as a pricing manager at Morrisons and was very well liked at work, but he had a problem with gambling which started in his late 20s. It began on the slot machines at the bookies, but then developed using his iPhone and iPad. He could lose up to £1,000 in one session and had a very serious relationship which broke down because of his gambling habit, and he was getting into debt. He then met a woman called Rachel at work who encouraged him to gambling anonymous sessions. She seemed to improve his condition, and I assumed that he was getting better, but he was still doing it behind the scenes. Towards his death, he had developed fluid in his knee and had to take 3 weeks off work, and he became a reclusive. In May 2017 he took an overdose of paracetamol, but he realized what he had done and took himself to hospital. It seemed more like a cry for help. In the last couple of weeks, he appeared to be getting back to his normal self, and he was due to go back to work on the day he went missing. More than 100 mourners attended Mr. Tomlinson's funeral. In a statement, his girlfriend, Miss Hurst, said his death came as a total shock to me as I never realized he was struggling so much. Anna Sanderson, a mental health nurse at Salford Royal Hospital who treated Mr. Tomlinson after his overdose, said it is clear the gambling had a big impact on his personal relationships and it was the primary motive for his actions. Earlier, the inquest heard Mr. Tomlinson had started playing slot machines before moving on to forms of gambling using his iPhone. A tabloid was selling off lots of items including a very expensive set of golf clubs. He was getting a lot of phone calls and letters through the post, which at the time I didn't know about. He had booked a holiday with Rachel to see the Northern Lights this November and he had to pay the remainder of the balance by the end of August. He borrowed money from his sister, but we believe he went to the bookies to spend that. I last saw Philip on the Saturday morning at 5:30 a.m. I was sleeping on the sofa and he came in and said, "Sorry I woke you up, I love you," and that was the last thing he said to me. He went out and I expected him to return that evening, but he never did. I received a Facebook message from his friend saying that Philip was supposed to be at work but hadn't showed up, and by 10 p.m. that night we became really worried. Philip was the life and soul of the party and he had so many friends. In a statement, Miss Hurst said, "I had known Philip for the past 10 years and we had been in a relationship for 3 years until April 2017 when the relationship broke down. He was bubbly and outgoing and he had a lot of friends. I was aware that he had gambling problems in the last, but I thought that had stopped and that he was going to AA meetings. I thought he had turned a corner, but in April I found out that he had been gambling and we separated shortly after. He told me that he overdosed in May wasn't because of me and that he was just being stupid. On the 11th of July I was told that he was missing and I sent him a text message to see if he was okay, but I could see that he had not read it. His death came as a total shock to me as I never realized he was struggling so much." Anna Sanderson, a mental health nurse at Salford Royal Hospital who treated Mr. Tomlinson after his overdose, said it is clear the gambling had a big impact on his personal relationships and it was the primary motive for his actions. It remained unclear whether this was a deliberate overdose, but that he was regretting his actions. We focused on addressing his problems with gambling, such as going to AA meetings, and he was given a number of options about this. We could have discussed the matter with his parents to provide more context, but Philip was a grown man and we didn't want to breach his confidence. For confidential support, call the Samaritans on 116123. Visit a local Samaritans branch or see www.samaritans.org for details.